All right, I'll get started here in just a second. Got people joining. Right, well, as people come in, we can go ahead and get started. And I am Julie Cornegay, and we'd like to welcome you to our David training session. Today, we're going to be focusing on the planner tool, which is really exciting. It's that custom tool we've been telling you about where you can input very specific information regarding people's finances and expenses. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues from Atlanta, Ellie and Elias. So y'all take it away.
Thanks, Julia, for that introduction. Yeah, welcome everybody. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started because we have a kind of a quick session for you guys today. So here's the plan. So first we're going to talk about what is Cliff Planner and the features of it, how you can use it. Then my colleague Elias is going to demo the two different parts of the Cliff tool. The first part is about career planning, and the second part is about budgeting for that career move. And then last, we've got 3 pieces of homework to give for you, and you can do them at your leisure. All right. Okay, so job seekers that are walking into your office, they probably all have the same problem, right? This is just to set the stage for why you may need Cliff Planner. They have lots of bills to pay. All right, and those bills, they're going to vary by personal circumstance. Some people, they've got lots of mouths to feed. Other people, they just have themselves. And you know that there is a solution for everyone. And typically that solution is going to involve some combination of training and a better paying job, right? But the path is just, it's not easy to see for everyone because people lack information. Your clients probably have like lots of questions about what path is the right one for them. Maybe asking, what jobs are going to allow me to become financially secure? How do I even get that job if I see it out there? And then do I need training for that job? And if they do need training, they're probably going to want to know, well, how do I pay for school? And then once they do get the job, they're going to want to know, well, how much am I going to earn when I first start on that new job? And then as my income starts to increase, am I going to lose public assistance along the way? And what public assistance am I going to be losing? So these are just a few of the very complex and situation-specific financial challenges that people face, right? They probably all sound very familiar to you all. So ultimately, in order to achieve financial stability, it's not going to be an easy path. It's going to take time, it's going to take effort, and crucially, everyone needs a plan. But to make that plan, people need answers to all of these questions about training and income and public assistance. They have to feel comfortable in that plan. And that is where Cliff is going to come in. It's going to help you make that plan for people. So it's going to help you make that plan for people by providing the financial information that they need to get started. So this is a screenshot of Cliff. And remember, Cliff and David Planner are analogous. They're just 2 different names for the same tool. And like I said earlier, Cliff has got 2 main components. Choose your future career components, where you can.
Thank you, Richard. Hey, Jason.
You get the 2 different components, the part where you can compare income in different career paths. And then the second component is going to budget for that career that you end up choosing. All right. So the first part of the tool is this career planning component. So in this part of the tool, you can visualize how income changes along a career path, compare the financial returns to different careers, like over your whole lifetime. What if I become a nurse? What if I stay as a janitor? What does that total financial return look like for me? You can learn how long in any chosen career path it will take before you can pay all of your bills. And specifically, it'll show you how long it will take before you can pay all of your bills before receiving any public assistance. And we call that self-sufficiency. And the second component of the tool is going to be this budgeting component. So the budgeting part of the tool lets you visualize your budget as you make that transition to the new job. So it's going to show you where there are budget gaps along that path. And it'll help you to understand how public assistance can help during some periods and how it will phase out as your income grows along a career path. And that's really important because that's going to help you understand what's going to happen when. It won't be so surprising to people. All right. So now let's talk about what Cliff does not provide. So Cliff is not useful for giving any kind of career choice advice based on skills and interests, right? There isn't some part of the tool that lets you go through and like figure out what careers are a good fit for you. Cliff is just about money. That's all it's about, nothing else. So there's nothing about skills or interests. And it doesn't provide any information about how long training takes or about where you can get training or anything like that, or how much it's going to cost. All of the information you need to come into Cliff with before you get to Cliff. So we're not career counselors that develop this tool. We're just economists. Think about it that way. All we know how to do is to forecast money and tell you about how laws work. So you're going to have to figure that out on your own before you get to Cliff. And we have a little worksheet for you to fill out beforehand. And last, Cliff does not provide financial advice. That's also important to know. Okay, so to show you how Cliff works, let's imagine for a minute that you are a career counselor and you have Leah. Leah comes into your office looking for a better paying job. Now, Leah is working at a concession stand and has 2 young children. She is thinking about becoming a nurse. All right, so with this setup, Elias is now going to give you a demo of the Cliff Planner. All right, so Elias, go ahead and take control of the screen and give us a demo. Tell us, what is Leah going to do next?
Sounds good. All right. So yes, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take on the role of a career counselor and use Cliff Planner with my fictional client whose name is Leah. Right, so Leah is 25 years old. She has 2 children, lives in New Orleans, Louisiana, and she works at the cafeteria in a movie theater. Right, but her goal is to become an LPN, licensed practical nurse. Right, so I'm going to use Leah's case study to walk you through the Cliff tool step by step. Right, so here's on my screen, you can see the intro page of the Cliff Planner tool. And as you remember, there is some information that Cliff Planner doesn't provide. That's why we prepared a checklist that you can send to your clients in advance of the Cliff tool session. Right, so we can open it and see what additional information on the career choice, on income and assets, on expenses, on public assistance, right, your client should bring to make the Cliff session as productive as possible. Okay. All right, so let's get started. So Leah comes to my office and she wants career advice. I start by asking some basic information about Leah's family. Where does she live? She lives in Louisiana. In New Orleans, which is Orleans Parish. Does she have spouse or partner? No. Does she have any other family members? Yes. She has 2 children. Leah is 25 years old and her children are 4 and 6. Okay. So after collecting this required information about Leah, I'm ready to click next and move to the next step, choose careers, right? So this tool allows to compare and analyze up to 2 different career options. Career option number 1 is a baseline for comparison, and career option 2 is a custom career path. Right, so let's come back to Leah's story. So she is working at the cafeteria, right, which is a near minimum wage job. So I can input her actual job, or to save some time, I can just click the minimum wage job and use that as a default. right? So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use minimum wage job as a baseline occupation for the career paths comparison. Okay. So next, I need to select a career path for Leah, right? The new career path that Leah wants to pursue. And remember that she wants to become an LPN, the licensed practical nurse. So I'm going to construct this LPN career path for Leah. I start by selecting occupational group, right? These are based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics classification. And I will choose healthcare practitioners and technical occupations. Next, I'll need to select the occupation from the list of occupations that belong to this group. And I can find the licensed practical nurses from the list of occupations. Okay. Will this job provide health insurance? Let's say no. Do you know the starting hourly wage? So you have an option to input the starting hourly wage, or if you don't know it, you can click no, and then the tool will use the information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics website to fill in the starting hourly wage for you. Okay. Next, you will need to decide, you will need to provide some inputs for the duration of schooling, for tuition fees, if any, total grants, total student loans, if any, right? LPN typically requires 1 year to complete, 1 year of training to complete, right? So for now, I assume that Leah will go to school for 1 year and she'll go to school for free, right? For this exercise to make it simple. But you can input actual amount of tuition fees that Leah will have to pay. Will Leah work during her studies? Yes, I assume that Leah will go, she'll be working during school, right, to support herself. And she'll be working 20 hours per week at $8 per hour, right? Okay, so I created the career path for Leah, right? Okay, so now I'm ready to compare careers for Leah. So I click next, and then I hit the calculate the results button. And I'll wait for the tool to produce the results of the career paths comparison. So chart number 1 shows the lifetime income for each career path. So each bar essentially shows how much Leah will earn in her after-tax income from now when she's 25 until the retirement at age 65. Right. So the first bar chart shows the case when Leah, if Leah will, stick to her current job, to her current minimum wage job. And then the second bar shows how much she will earn over the lifetime if she will become an LPN, right? And you can compare and contrast the amounts for each of the career paths. Okay. Let's turn to the second chart. And the second chart shows your annual take-home pay by career path. And we define take-home pay as income before taxes. Right. So in the chart, you can see how much money Leah will expect to receive if she's working as an LPN, right? Or if she sticks to her current minimum wage job, right? So the chart starts at age 25. That's how old Leah is right now, right? And goes for the next 25 years. We can see that as Leah gains some experience, her wages increase, right? Increase in wages. But the wage growth is different depending on the occupation, right? So the wages increase at a faster pace for the LPN career path than for her minimum wage job, because LPN has more wage growth potential, right? So the red line here grows faster than the orange line. Then finally, we observe this dip in income, right, in the first year on the LPN career path. And this dip reflects the fact that Leah is in school and she's working less hours, right? So remember that I inputted 20 hours per week at $8 per hour in her first year, right? That's why she has to work part-time in my scenario, and we have a dip in income. But LPN training takes only 1 year. So the age 26, Leah graduates, right? And she becomes an LPN and her income increases, Okay. Now, the third chart plots the total family income, the income of all family members, right, by each career path relative to the self-sufficiency standard. And I think you covered self-sufficiency target concept in the previous parts of the course. Sorry. At age 25, oh, sorry. Right, so we define self-sufficiency target as an amount of money, right, that the family needs to pay for the basic expenses, right, for rent, groceries, daycare, without any public assistance. And to calculate the self-sufficiency target, we use cost of living database, right, that has a county level data on all typical expenses by family type. So in this example, so these are the basic average county level data for the Orleans County, right? So the gray dashed line here on the chart is the self-sufficiency target. So at age 25, Leia's income is well below the self-sufficiency target, right? So we can see that the red line is below the gray line, but as Leia's income grows, she gets closer and closer to being able to pay for her basic bills. And then at age 34, the red line is above the gray line, meaning that Leia achieved self-sufficiency target, right? And the last piece I want to talk to you about is we can see that self-sufficiency target is not constant, but it declines with time, right? And you can scroll down and see what expenses are included in the self-sufficiency target and how they change over time, right? So the childcare, for example, the green bar, it disappears at age 34. That's because the youngest child no longer needs childcare. Now at age 40, the youngest child moves out of the house and expenses decline even further, right? That's why the gray self-sufficiency target line is not flat, but it changes with time, it decreases with time, okay? I want to stop here and pass it back on to Ellie. I think you're muted, Ellie.
Yeah, we had a question in the chat just now. Yes, these jobs in the chart did assume that she's working 40 hours per week. Okay. All right, so now we're just going to have one very short poll about the features of the career planning portion of the tool that Elias just covered. We'll take just 1 minute here because we have a quick session. This is supposed to be multiple choice, by the way. Sorry about that. Maybe we'll just go through the answers. Just click on one of them. Okay, in the poll. Okay, so this is actually a multiple selection option. So the answers are the second one. So it shows how expenses change as family members age. That was the self-sufficiency line declining with age. It also forecasts age at which someone will become self-sufficient. So that's the income line crossing the necessary expense line, the self-sufficiency line. And then the other ones, it does not do. It does not show, for example, the trajectory of wages on a selected career path in a chosen state. The number 1 is incorrect because it's a bit of a trick question, actually. Oh, sorry, I had to share results. So this first one is actually incorrect. This is something that the career planner does not do. It does not show the trajectory of wages on the career path in a chosen state, because what it shows is actually more detailed than that. It shows it specifically for at the county level. So it's a trick question there. But number 2 is correct. Number 3 is correct. And then number 4, 5, and 6 are things, as you guys noted, the CLIP tool does not do. It does not provide information about how much training costs, does not provide information on duration of training, and does not provide job recommendations based on interest and skills. Okay. So with that, we'll go on to one other quiz, which is going to be about interpretation of those charts. So we just want to make sure that whenever you look at that output, you understand how to read it, because it can be kind of tricky sometimes. All right, so here is our second poll. Features of budgeting. Let's go ahead and launch this one. So this one is also, oh, sorry. I'm going through the wrong one here. I think we are missing one of the polls. Okay. All right, so we'll just go through this together. So this first question that I want to ask you guys is, looking at this chart, you guys can just type it in the chat. Think about how old is Leah going to be, this top chart here. How old will Leah be during her last year in school if she wants to become a registered nurse? So the registered nurse line, don't forget, is the red line. And think about what it means whenever the red line is low. And then just type in the chat how old she's going to be during her last year in school. All right. I like that everyone is participating. This is awesome. Good work, guys. And to answer the question in the chat, our self-sufficiency standard is something unique that we developed. It's not the same as some of these other organizations, I guess, have a similar term. All right, yes, the answer is 28. So you know that by looking at here, and her income is low in the first year, low in the second year, low in the third year, low in the fourth year, reflecting that she's working part-time while in school. And then her income suddenly jumps up whenever she actually starts that full-time RN job. So the very last year she's in school, she's 28 years old. Okay. And then, that's correct. So another question for you is, at what age enough money to meet the self-sufficiency standard if she is working as a web developer? So that's this orange line. Remember, she's going to meet that self-sufficiency standard whenever her income from the web developer is the same as the self-sufficiency target, how much expenses are for her. So what age should that gray line and that orange line meet? Great, yeah, you guys are definitely getting this dead on. Just right here in between age 31 and 32, so either answer would be correct. And then the last question about for you for this slide is looking at this bottom chart, expenses included in the self-sufficiency target. Look at each bar is going to correspond to a different expense, right? And so if we look at this, we can figure out at what age her child is no longer going to need childcare. So at what age does that childcare expense disappear from the chart? Now, how old is she when she no longer has a green bar? Exactly. You guys are getting it. Exactly. So we see here when she's 32, she doesn't have that green bar there. So now her kids are old enough to where they can just come home from school and like unlock the door themselves. Okay. So with that, let's move on. So one thing that was missing from what we talked about so far is government assistance, right? So we know there's lots of government support available for low-income people out there, especially those with families. So this slide is a really brief overview of all the different public assistance programs included in CLIF. Now, because of the length of today's session, we're not going to go through the details of each program, but I just wanted you to know in general that we have all the major federal and state programs included in here. And specifically, the government will provide tax credits, and then they will also provide assistance for food, health insurance, childcare, and housing. These are the main ways the government supports individuals and families. Now, if you want to know about any of these programs, like in general, who they cover or how much they cover, you can go to the FAQ tab on the planner that Elias will point out in his next demo. Okay, so with that, actually, I'm going to give it back over to Elias to demo the second part of the tool, the budgeting part.
Thanks, Ellie. Let me share my screen again. All right. So now we are ready to move on to the next part of the training, where we'll learn how to use a CLIF planner to create a budget for Leah, right? To make sure that she can financially make it through school and become an LPN, right? Because the first part of the tool, you decided that, okay, yes, LPN career path is a good choice for Leah. Now we're going to plan for her career transition, right? To build a financial plan for her, budget for her, right? So click on budget for my career move, for your career move button. And now we'll need to navigate through each of the tabs, right? So first of all, to capture the budget correctly, I need to ask some additional information about Leah's family, right? So are there any other sources of income? Are there any assets? I need to capture information correctly in order to estimate the public assistance, right? Because public assistance programs, they have asset tests and income tests, right? So I need to know this information for that purposes. Okay, but let's say that Leah doesn't have any assets or additional source of income. Now let's go to the next tab, public assistance. So what public assistance do I want to include in my analysis, right? So this is a list of programs that Ella discussed with you, right? And if you want to learn more about each of the programs, you can click on the FAQ tab on top of the page that provides a lot of useful information about different public assistance programs and tax credits, a lot of details about these programs. Okay, but I'll go back to the budget page, and I will assume that Leah is currently receiving Medicaid, public health insurance, which is Medicaid and health insurance marketplace subsidies, SNAP, food stamps, earned income tax credit, EITC. And also, I will assume that Leah was on a wait list for Section 8 housing voucher, and now she finally got it. So click Section 8 housing voucher as well. Next, expenses. So we want to see if Leah's family will be able to meet the basic expenses, right? So we start by selecting the horizon of planning. So that is for how many years into the future, we want to project Leia's budget. You can put 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I will select 5 years. So I will project Leia's budget for the next 5 years. Now, what expenses do I want to use? So here we have two options. Option number one, you can input Leia's actual expenses, right? Actual typical monthly expenses that she has. And this option is preferable because it will capture the family's budget precisely, right? But we also realize that it can be time consuming to input all this information. That's why we give you an option to default Leia's expenses to the self-sufficiency target values that we saw on a previous set of charts, right? So we're going to use this table that contains typical monthly expenses from the self-sufficiency target as a basis to build Leia's budget, right? And now if Leia receives some additional support, or if you as a career counselor, maybe you have some wraparound support for her, then we can input this additional support into these fields. But we'll come back to that a little bit later. But for now, I think we are ready to build Leia's budget. So first of all, I need to decide what career I want to budget. And remember that we have two career options, right? Career option number one, that is a baseline occupation. And then option number two is our LPN career path. So I'll click career option number two, and we'll create a budget for Leia's transition to the LPN career path. I click calculate my budget, and the tool will produce a budget for Leia. All right, so let's look at the first chart and the corresponding table below. So they show Leia's annual budget for the next 5 years, from age 25 to age 29. That's my horizon of planning that I have chosen. Message in red says that Leia is experiencing budget gap, right? And indeed, in the first year, while in school, her budget is way below zero. Namely, she's $10,000 short, right? So this table and the chart also can help you to identify the locations of different benefits cliffs and the benefits plateaus, right? So the recap of the first core concepts session, so benefit cliffs, they occur when, due to the loss of public assistance, the family is worse off after increasing income. Then the benefits plateau occurs when income increases, but the family is not better off. And if I compare family's budget at age 26 and 27, you can see that the age 27, Leia experiences a small benefits cliff. So her income increases, but her annual budget actually declines by $400, right? So small, but still a benefits cliff. And then at age 28, 29, the budget is almost unchanged. So Leia experiences the benefits plateau. Right? You can scroll down and see the next chart that can help us to understand what stands behind the benefits cliffs. Right? So the second chart and the table, they break down Leia's public assistance by year. So in the first year, Leia receives the variety of public assistance. She receives EITC, housing voucher, SNAP, Medicaid for children, and Medicaid for adults, right? Now in the year two, after the graduation, Leia loses housing voucher almost completely. There is like a small amount of housing voucher left, right? Her EITC declines a little bit. She loses SNAP. She loses Medicaid for adults, right? Because her income increases after she graduates and gets an LPN position, right? But we know from the first chart that the budget is actually, she's actually better off, despite the fact she lost all the public assistance. Her income increases significantly and compensates for this loss of public assistance, right? But we have the small benefits cliff at age 27. So you can scroll down again and see why the small benefits cliff happens. And in year 3, at age 27, Leah loses housing voucher completely. Next, your EITC declines, right? And this combined effect of full loss of Section 8 housing voucher and small decline in EITC kind of leads to this benefits cliff that we saw on the previous chart. Okay. Now let's talk about this last chart, which is very important for the budget. But this last chart shows the expenses after the public assistance. That means what are the Leah's actual out-of-pocket expenses for each item in the basic budget after you account for all possible reductions due to public assistance, right? So let's look at the housing expense as an example, right? At age 25, Leah receives housing voucher that covers most of her rent, right? So she actually out of pocket in the first year, she pays, just $832, right? But then at age 26, she loses most of her housing voucher. So she has to pay much more out of pocket for rent, right? So per year, she'll have to pay almost full amount of rent, which is $9,500. Okay. All right. Now, the last key functionality of the Cliff Planner is the ability to make some adjustments to the budget and closing the budget gaps. So right now, what I'm going to try and close the budget gap for Leah in the first year, right, by going back to the prior screens and making some changes to Leah's career path that I specified before. So what are the potential solutions for me to close the budget gap? Well, the first solution might be to apply for some additional public assistance and tax credits. So go back to public assistance. And okay, so for example, what will happen if Leah will apply for the child tax credit, right? So you can see that Leah is not currently receiving the child tax credit, but she's very likely being eligible for the child tax credit because she has children, young children. So you can click on child tax credit for Leah and go back to my budget, click recalculate and see how child tax credit can improve the budget for Leah. And it helped to close the gap in the first year significantly, right? However, there is still a gap. There is still $4,000 budget gap in the first year. So what else can we do? Well, second solution might be to search for some additional wraparound support, wraparound funding. I could go back to expenses and look at the wraparound or other support fields. So let's say that I know some local nonprofit organization that may be willing to provide some additional financial assistance to Leah while she's in school. So let's say, for example, that this nonprofit is willing to provide $400 per month, like a stipend in the first year to Leah, right? So to make this adjustment, I go back to expenses, input $400 of monthly wraparound support in the first field, then go back to my budget, click recalculate, and we'll see if it will help to close the gap. And yes, indeed, it closed the budget gap. So now the message in red says that Leah has enough resources to meet her budget in all years, right? So now I'm ready to print the results and hand them back to Leah, because we built the budget for Leah's career transition. We made sure that she can make it financially through school. Okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen and Ellie, you can take it back.
Okay, thanks, Elias. Okay, we've got 3 polls left for you guys, and then that's the end. Then I'll give it back to Julie to close us out. We'll do this next poll fairly quickly. Features of the budgeting part of the tool. So just, there's actually a multiple choice poll as well, but just choose one. We'll go through the answers. Okay, we'll just take about 15 more seconds here. There's actually 2 correct answers, but just choose one of the correct answers. Or 3 correct answers. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll and share the results. All right, so looks like you guys answered correctly. The 3 correct answers in this case are compares the path of wages for up to 2 careers, forecast the path of public assistance, and allows users to create that detailed and customized budget and plan for their future. If you can't see the quiz, look for the little button in Zoom. Sometimes the poll disappears, but you can click on polls and it should pop back up for you. All right, so with that, let's go on to, one thing it does not do is provide financial advice, which you guys got that. Nailed it. Okay. So now let's go on to another poll, which is about the interpretation of the charts. So it's always a little bit tricky, so think through these questions carefully. All right, looking at these charts, which are kind of hard to see, so let me share the link. Elias, do you have the link handy by chance? Maybe you can pull it up here.
Yeah, give me a second.
Okay. Elias will share a link to a Google Drive doc that you can zoom in on the charts if you have a hard time seeing this, if your screen is too small. But in the meantime, I'll go ahead and launch the poll. So look at these charts and answer the following questions. Take just about 3 minutes here.
Put the link to the charts into the chat.
Okay, let's take just 30 more seconds here. Looks like most people have answered. Okay, with that, I'm going to end the poll in just a second. The final answers. I know it's a very quick session today. Apologize for that. Trying to make the most of your time. All right, ending the poll now. Sharing the results. Okay, let's go through this. Okay, in what year does this person lose subsidized meals? Okay, so subsidized meals. So yes, most people said year 5, and then some people said year 1. So this one's a little bit tricky because in year 1 and 2, the person doesn't have subsidized meals. And if you think back to the age of her kids in the example, her kids are age 2 and 3, I think it was. So they're young. So they're not in school yet. So they can't get subsidized school meals until they go to school. So the first 2 years, the value is 0 because the kids aren't in school at all, right? But then when they go to school, now the older one goes to school first. So now that has that amount, 776, and then 2 kids are in school. So it goes up. And then in year 5, that's when her income increases beyond the eligibility limit. The kids are in school, but they lose that subsidized school meal. That's why the answer is year 5. Number 2, what is their out-of-pocket expense in year 4 and 5? So in order to look at the out-of-pocket food expense, we just look at the right-hand chart, expenses after public assistance. And then we go down to where it says food. And we look over to year 4 and 5. And we see that out-of-pocket, that is not including her expenses that she gets, the food she spends using her EBT card, then she will spend about 4,423 in year 4 and 8,089. So a big increase is going to reflect that loss of food stamps. And then if the last questions are, what is the value of EITC in year 4 and year 5? So for that one, we will look back over here at the public assistance chart, find year 4 and 5, and find EITC. And we see that in year 4 and 5, we're forecasting that her EITC would be 2842 in year 4 and 1729 in year 5. And you guys must have got that one correct. So good work there. Okay, we have 8 minutes left and we have one more poll for you, but it's pretty short. I think we have time for it. Okay, so looking at these 2 charts, Elias, can you copy the questions again into the chat? I'll go ahead and launch the poll. It'll take a couple minutes here. Yes, sorry, the question 2 on the last poll is supposed to be a check all that apply, but it's right now just a single choice. It's like a Zoom feature issue. So just click on one of them and then we'll go through all the answers. Sorry about that. In reality, there are 4 correct answers for the second question, but just choose one of the correct ones. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll in about 30 seconds here. Okay, ending the poll now, sharing the results. Okay, so what age does this person experience a benefits cliff? So you guys got this correct. The idea is here, her net resources are going up and up and up, and then at 28, you see a drop in net resources, even though if you look at the table, we see that her take-home pay is increasing, right? It goes up by $4,000. So she should be better off, but in fact, her total budget declines. So that is suggesting that she is experiencing a benefits cliff in this case. And whenever we're trying to figure out the answer to the second question, what programs are contributing to that benefits cliff, we just look over to the right-hand chart and we just try to see which programs decline in value in the year that she experienced a benefit cliff. So between year 4 and year 5, we just want to know which programs decline in value. So we just compare these 2 numbers for each program, and we see that, well, here, premium subsidy declines. So that's contributing to the benefits cliff. Here, child care subsidy declines. That's contributing to the benefits cliff. Subsidized school meals declines. And EITC declines as well. The CDCTC actually increases, note, which is very interesting. That happens because her child care expense goes up, and so she's able to get a bigger tax credit. And the child care expense goes up because she loses some of her child care subsidy. Very detailed, I know. Okay, so I know that we went through this very fast, but we definitely encourage you guys to go back and rewatch this video afterwards. The first answer was age 29, year 5. So with that, I'll give it back over to Julie to close us out.
Thank you, Ellie. I appreciate it. And you guys did a great job. I appreciate your time today and sharing all this information with the folks here in Alabama. So I have just a few housekeeping notes to share, and I have included my contact information in the chat. So I want to make sure that everybody can reach out to me if they have any questions. Please don't hesitate. If you have missed a training session, I know we had about 400 people register, and that's really exciting. So if you have a colleague that has not been able to participate in the live training, we have archived all of these sessions on Alabama Works David training page. So please feel free to access those. And the really good news, we have added an additional training session. We realized that a lot of this information was really compact. So we will be hosting a hands-on training session where you can log into the tool, and we'll walk you through how to use all of the tools with a little more detail, and then also tell all your friends we'll be doing a review for the final assessment. So if you're looking for review materials, I would definitely tune into the session. So after we complete the final training session, then we'll send out an email, and there are going to be 2 links in the email. The first one is to a training evaluation. And so we really, we appreciate all of your feedback, and it's so important to us to get a pulse of what what you feel like went well and what we need to do a better job of. And so if you could please take a moment, it's a very short questionnaire. There will also be a link to the final assessment. And so the minimum passing score on the assessment is a 70. After you pass the assessment, you'll receive a certificate with your micro credential as part of that. So, and then the last piece, okay, so I see, thank you, Ellie. Yes, the last session is going to be August 12th at 10 a.m. And so if you want to go into and use any of these tools between now and then to start getting some practice and putting together some questions for the hands-on event next week, then you can access that. And I'm going to put this, drop this link in. We have a page on Alabama Works website. Jill's been so good to manage that for us. And so we have a link to the dashboard currently in there, and then hopefully we can get the planner link in there pretty quickly as well. So that is coming soon. And again, you have my email address. And if you have questions, please let me know what I can do to help. So with that, I have 10:01. I apologize. I kept you a minute too long, but we appreciate everybody's time today. And we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for your attention.
Bye.